coordinator in the late 90s of the team that almost won. Brian, good to talk again. How are you, pal?
Doing great.
You did a great job with this team. This day came very close. Anderson makes a field goal. The Vikings would have been in the Super Bowl in 1998.
Yeah, that's a special group. It's always great coming home. The fans are so great. I really thought we were going to see the Vikings here, which would have been so great.
So did I.
But yeah, that was a special group. Unbelievable group of offensive players and one of the best teams not to make a Super Bowl, I guess, in the history of the game.
Well, 15-1. You had Moss, you had Carter, you had Randy Moss, you had Robert Smith. I mean, that was
Leroy Horde, Randall McDaniel, John Randall, a lot of Hall of Famers on that team.
Yeah, what happened? Now, listen, the Falcons played well in the game, and, you weren't as prolific offensively had you had been in the regular season. You beat the Cardinals, you beat the Rams by a whole bunch of points, didn't you, in the first round that year?
Yeah, and then actually it was the Falcons, or not the Falcons. Excuse me, it was the Arizona Cardinals.
Arizona, that's right, Arizona,
and moved the ball pretty well. A couple turnovers, so obviously that'll catch you. And then, but the kick, Gary Anderson, such a great guy, had been perfect all season long. I remember like it was yesterday. We're getting down the red zone, look at Denny and say, "What do you want to do here?" He goes, "Hey, we kick a field goal, game's over." And he's right. It would have been over. There's no way they had the time to come back at that point. Gary had been perfect. So on third down play, we just kind of center ourselves up. And I thought it was over. I turn and I go back to get a drink of Gatorade, thinking we're going to the Super Bowl. And I hear the stadium groan. And I look up at the Jumbotron or whatever it is, thinking, well, what just happened? And the fact that he missed it, it was a shock to the system.
Did you live? Minnesota's had a history of losing these terrible games. The Hail Mary, we know with Staubach.
Yeah.
That game is added to it. Was it the feeling of '98? They had lost those four Super Bowls. Was there a feeling of doom with the Viking fan, even with that great '98 team, that a coach would feel?
I tell you what, now for me it was tough, or not tough, in that because then I became the head coach of the Ravens. I mean, literally the minute after the game's over.
Oh, so you
no one expected us to lose. So all of a sudden, the teams that were vying for some of my services, they jumped into gear literally when the game was over. So I had to transition my mind. I didn't really, and I actually got criticized for it to a degree. I had a chance to grieve that loss the way everybody else did because I had just immediately moved on to another stage in my career.
Interesting.
And it was what it was. But here, I always pose this as a question, though, and it's an interesting thought. People forget we lost like 4 or 5 starters defensively in that game. So had Gary made the field goal, and we had indeed gone on to play in the Super Bowl against a very good Denver
team, yeah.
But without a lot of hands defensively, and as good as that offense was, let's say we'd have lost. What was more painful for the fans? To have gone to another Super Bowl and lose yet another Super Bowl game.
Tough call. Yeah, tough
or
call.
Not go to the Super Bowl. Now, that's kind of hypothetical, but a lot of people forget that what happened to us in that game.
You were a great offensive coordinator with this team, and then 2 years later you had almost switched gears and become a defensive-oriented coach.
Yeah, amazing how that is.
Yeah, it's amazing how you were a genius offensively, and you had to all of a sudden become a defensive-oriented coach because obviously the next year you're sitting there with 2 years later you're sitting there with Dilfer as your quarterback.
Yeah, and Trent was the perfect quarterback for us because we recognized that defense was so special. League setting, historic special in terms of points scored.
85 Bear defense special.
Right.
Yes.
That it finally dawned on me, because I'm a little bit slow on the uptake sometimes, that, you know what, if we run the ball, and we were third in the league in rushing, led the league in turnover differential, didn't turn the ball over, and play that good defense, this is good enough to win a Super Bowl. At a time, and I must say, it was at a time, too, keep in mind, when our Super Bowl, the next year New England won it, and the next year in Tampa Bay, all defensive dominant teams with quarterbacks that were somewhat unheralded. Brady just starting, obviously. We had Trent Dilfer, Brad Johnson, who's an excellent quarterback. Probably doesn't get his due. But it was defensive-dominated team, obviously, in Tampa. But we were at a time when we were void of the great quarterback play. We were transitioning out of the Marinos, the Elways, the Youngs, the Montanas.
Point. Excellent.
We had not yet come into the Mannings, the Breezes, and the guys that were young and just
excellent,
now.
And Brady. Excellent point.
Yeah, so not to take anything away from that team, but our run to the Super Bowl was Brian Greasy, Steve McNair, God rest his soul, great quarterback, but we played him in our division.
No, you knew him well.
So we knew him well.
And they were going to run Eddie George anyway.
Rich Gannon in a championship game where Rich was at a point where he was just handing off to the number one running offense in the league that year in Oakland. And then Kerry Collins in the Super Bowl. Not today, even if you're playing great defense, you're going to have to go through Roethlisberger, Brady, a Breeze, a Matt Ryan, a Cam Newton. You have to go through a more elevated level of quarterback play on a couple of games to get to this game.
Denny Green just passed away. He was your boss. Give me a little rundown on him for a sec. Go ahead.
Just such a, you hear it all the time. Just as good a coach as he was, just a better man. What a great guy to work for.
Let you do what you want to do.
Genuinely cared about you and nurtured you as a coach and what your growth was about. Maybe the best personnel guy as a head coach, being able to identify talent when it came time to play them, how to tap into the energies of a player, best I've ever seen. He'd have made an incredible general manager.
Lost a lot of rough games, so he doesn't go down in history as one of these great all-time coaches.
Well, and was a forerunner. I mean, the fact of a trend center in terms of being an African-American, one of the first African-American head coaches. Just a great guy to work for. So much. I mean, Denny's fingerprints all over whatever accomplishments I've had as a coach. We worked together initially on Bill Walsh's staff when he was the special teams coach that first 2 years, or first year when I was there administratively. Just a great man, and was a huge loss when we lost Denny.
Ryan Billick, of course, thoughts. How about Belichick for a sec? I mean, he is so good. I don't know if you love him. You coached against him a million times. Give me a little feel on Belichick here. Why does he have such an advantage? It's not even close. Why does he have such an advantage against him?
We're uncharted territory here. We've never had a coach had this kind of run, the coach-quarterback relationship for almost 20 years. Keep in mind, Bill Belichick first. I always say this about Brady, but the same could be true of Belichick. What has happened on a football field that these two have not seen? And can you imagine the strength, the ability? Keep in mind, Bill Belichick has been in pro football his entire professional career.
Yeah.
His entire career, his reference frame. Imagine on Sunday, Jim Schwartz and the Eagle defense do something, pressure, coverage, whatever, something a little different. That the New England Patriots are okay, we weren't prepared for this, is something different. And the advantage that Brady can go back to Belichick and say, hey, they're doing this. Remember 15 years ago when the Patriots or the Cowboys did? Remember 9 years ago when Denver did the? Oh, yeah, we did. Okay, we did this. Okay, and you make an adjustment. Unbelievable reference frame for them to draw on, which is a huge advantage.
The Jaguars in the championship game, did they lose? Paul? I know I thought the two calls were brutal, and the defense got a little tired, but did the Jaguars trying to nurse a game around a quarterback they don't have a ton of confidence in and really hurt them, but did they get too conservative with those 3 drives in the fourth quarter with a lead?
I get asked that a lot in the play calling. It really depends. If you win, you didn't. If you lose, you did. And you're making the same calls. I think we got a sense of, were they comfortable putting the ball in key situation in Blake Bortles' hand in order to get a couple of those first down?
They weren't.
And from the late third quarter on, you saw something I was very familiar with the defenses that I had around. You saw, even though they weren't scoring, New England was changing the field position. Jacksonville was starting on the 20, then the 15, then the 10, and finally in that final drive was kicking from their own end zone, then giving Brady at 5 minutes with less than a touchdown advance.
At the 29-yard line.
Yeah. Then you go, okay, we've seen this. This is not good. So now, is that play calling? Is it attitude? Do you give credit to New England, which I think you need to do? The inexperience of Jacksonville. I think there's any number of things they can look at. Did they become too conservative? Well, they lost, so at the end of the day, you can lay whatever criticism you want about it, and it's probably valid.
What is the key? Up the middle pressure for the Eagle defense on Sunday?
Here's the key, and the numbers have been put out that the people with the matrix and the whole 9 yards. As Marv Levy would say, it's simple but not easy. You got to put pressure on Brady. You got to hit him at least 7 times. You got to keep him under 30% on third down. Hard to do. Under 50% in the red zone. Got to minimize the big plays down the field. Got to hold him under 20 points. Now, the problem is you got to do them all. You can't just do 4 out of the 5, 5 out of the 6. You got to do them all. Jacksonville found that. And all the things they did against Pittsburgh, they did them all. Third down conversion, 5 for 5 in the red zone, didn't give up the big plays, ran for over 100 yards, kept them from, yada, yada, yada. In New England, they did a number of them, but they didn't do all of them. And that's the challenge for Philadelphia. If you're going to beat Tom Brady and the New England Patriots, you got to do them all. They're capable of it. They've got the personnel, and they've shown where they can do it, but that's a tall task. You have
Sure
to do it
is.
all.
Sure. It's SeatGeek. Give me a little rundown on here.
Yeah, whatever your ticket needs, SeatGeek.com. Go to SeatGeek.com / Super Bowl tickets tracker. You can see it's about playing the stock market. Buy tickets now, buy tickets late. Get in price is a little over $4,000. Average price a little over $5,000. Best thing about it, every transaction is 100% guaranteed. And how about this? You put in a promo, Coach SB, you get $250 back from your purchase.
Boy, oh boy, look at that. You probably enjoyed coaching here. It's a great place, good place to live, nice place to coach.
Loved it.
Love the team. The
Come
fans
back
are nice.
every year.
Oh, you do. You love
Absolutely
it.
love it.
You loved Minnesota, huh?
Absolutely. My favorite. My girls grew up in here.
Oh, really?
Still think of it as home.
Have you been to the stadium? It's a beautiful stadium.
Have not been on the inside.
Oh, you have
Can't
not?
wait to get there. Looking forward to it.
Always a pleasure. I haven't talked to you in a long time.
All right, man. Very
You got
good.
it. Brian Billick, thoughts. Good start. Busy program. Alan Page will join us in a second as we move it along here at Super Bowl 52 in Minnesota. Come on back.